Introduction. In taking as my theme today the role of friendly societies in bringing about a better life for all Australians, I speak, in effect, of the relevance of the mutualist philosophy to our times. I speak of the need for a new mutualism which brings back together that great family of organizations which are heirs to Australia's enduring tradition and history of mutualist self-help. I speak of the need for innovatory methods of applying a mutualist approach and outlook in the difficult and turbulent years which are ahead of us. Australia's most distinguished political journalist, Paul Kelly, has called his most recent book The End of Certainty. As a recent seminal study by Hugh Mackay points out, whether we realize it or not, all Australians are becoming new Australian as we struggle partly to adapt to the changes going on around us, and partly to shape them to our liking too. It may well be that the acid test for mutualism in the times to come is whether, and, if so, to what extent, it enables us to shape changes to our liking. The most effective way for us to restore certainty to our lives is to take back control of them to the greatest possible extent for ourselves. I start from the premise that Australia stands today at an historic watershed in our national affairs. It is plain now as never before in our post-war experience that neither the welfare state as we know it today nor the unfettered market economy are capable of meeting the expectations which many have invested in them. The lessons and consequences of the great as good 80s are far too recent and painful to require significant or extensive reiteration. Unemployment levels are higher than ever before in our post-war experience. So too are levels of long-term unemployment. The capacity of even an otherwise healthy economy to provide work for all who seek it is, at the least, in serious doubt. The gap between the rich and the poor has at the same time become greater than at any earlier post-war stage. The Mackay study reminds us that, in just 16 years 1976-92, the proportion of Australian households with an income of more than $72,000 based on constant 1991-92 values rose from 15% to 30%. At the same time, the proportion of households with an income of less than $22,000 rose from 20% to 30%. If we define the economic middle class as being households with incomes between $22,000 and $72,000 in 1991-92 terms, then the middle class has shrunk from 65% of households in 1976 to 40% of households in 1992. We have moved within the space of 2 decades from being one of the most egalitarian nations on earth to one which is characterized instead by profoundly anti-egalitarian attitudes and practices. The rebound from welfare at the same time threatens to become a wholesale retreat, as governments everywhere scramble to rebalance their budgets and extricate themselves from financial commitments which are seen to be unsustainable. The safety net on which many have relied for support in times of adversity is seen increasingly to be ungenerous and inadequate. The upshot has been the emergence for the first time of an Australian underclass, similar in most respects to those which have also emerged in the United States of Ronald Reagan and George Bush and the Britain of Margaret Thatcher. Failing a new approach, hundreds of thousands of Australians will in future experience lifelong unemployment. Far from either the public or private sectors responding adequately to these great structural problems, both are seen widely as compounding them. Where jobs should be created they are instead being destroyed. The new poverty and the new inequality cry out for remedies and solutions which so far have not figured on the agendas of either government or opposition parties. Mutualism. Our forefathers in 19th century Britain faced problems of endemic unemployment, underemployment, poverty and inequality which, in kind if not in degree, strikingly resemble those of today. Then too governments could offer no effective alternative. the times gave rise instead to the philosophy of mutualism which now brings this conference together. Great mutualist movements emerged, with a shared, unshakable belief in each for all and all for each. The Rochdale pioneers, for example, established their cooperative store in Toad Lane in order to obtain affordable access to such household requisites as food and clothing. Credit cooperatives provided affordable consumer finance. Friendly societies were initially a source of burial benefits, and, later, unemployment benefits, sickness benefits and medical care. Life assurance was offered by mutual societies, as was home finance by building societies. Processing and marketing cooperatives enabled small farmers to participate in the adding of value to their products. There were industrial cooperatives where the workers owned their jobs. The usefulness of all these institutions, and the validity of their mutualist principles, is evidenced by their survival. They have endured, and skillfully adapted themselves to new needs and challenges, in the face often of hostility on the part of the professions, the indifference and incomprehension of governments and the short memories of many who in the past figured among their most notable beneficiaries. The 1992 Friendly Societies National Report, for example, lists no fewer than 21 major areas of activity in which friendly societies are currently engaged. The success of the Victorian Friendly Societies Pharmacy Cooperative, established as recently as 1982, clearly exemplifies what can be achieved from small beginnings. The Pharmacy Cooperative now operates 2 dispensaries of its own, and provides management services for a further 12 dispensaries. The financial strength of the venture totals in excess of $5.5 million. The current assets of friendly societies all told are in excess of $9 billion. Credit cooperatives affiliated with the World Council of Credit Unions currently have more than 44 million members. Cooperatives affiliated with the International Cooperative Alliance, the world umbrella body for the cooperative movement, currently total more than 650 million members. Taking into account the worldwide membership of friendly societies and building societies, mutualism is a movement numbering more than 1 billion people. Add to this the policy holders of the great mutual assurance societies who are also the members of those societies, and the number becomes still more impressive. Mutualism rivals in its following many of the world's major religions. It is appropriate at this time to ask whether a mutualism intellectually revitalized, its sense of purpose renewed, restated in contemporary terms and able to build on solid and long-standing foundations, may not remain at least as relevant to our current situation as it was to those whose demands mutualism has met so triumphantly in the past. It is unnecessary in a forum of this character to refer by way of answer to the success stories of individual friendly societies which are already well known to you. I offer instead outstanding examples of the success of mutualism in enabling ordinary people to house themselves, to bring about the economic development of the communities of which they are a part and to provide themselves with jobs. I refer in particular to the great common equity rental housing cooperatives of Ontario in Canada, to the Desjardins credit cooperatives in Quebec in Canada, and to the great industrial cooperatives at Mondragon in Spain. There is no doubt in my mind that the need for jobs, local economic development and affordable rental accommodation will be as real and urgent in the years immediately ahead of us as was the need for affordable food and clothing in 18th and 19th century Britain, or for affordable consumer finance in Australia in the 1950s and 1960s.